Welcome to the SEO Roundtable number 2, Invisible Impact, Why Technical SEO Matters More Than You Think. All right, so we're going to talk today about sorry, I'm moving things around, about those technical pieces. A lot of feedback is that clients sometimes don't always understand what we do when we say we're doing these invisible optimizations. So those are elements that are on the site. A lot of times it's back end work. It might be things like fixing a canonical tag or fixing broken links, just things that they don't necessarily see. And a lot of times they're asking us, does this stuff really matter? How does it impact? Or we know that it overall does something, but we can't necessarily see it, so we prefer to get something else. So we're here today to talk about why those invisible impact items are super important and try to help you understand them a little bit better. All right, so really, I'm just going to ask some questions and everybody jump in and chat a little bit. So, um, what does the term invisible SEO mean to you guys on the SEO team? Like, what do you think it mean? What does it mean to you, and what do you think it means to our clients?
I think invisible SEO, honestly, is just all of that back end work. So, like what you mentioned, it's the stuff that you can't visually see. So, if I go in and do a Google post, or I go in and even update like in H1 or even meta tags, um, a client as well as us, we can like visually see it pretty quickly. Like if you change something from being pet friendly to luxury, content wise, you're able to see it. Whereas I feel like those invisible tasks, I mean, even like in my mind, I would qualify like an image alt tag as like an invisible task.
Right.
You're really not seeing it unless you have a reading device, or if you're going into the source code and looking for those alt tags.
Which no one,
Um,
no one knows. Like, no one has the time to do that. They're just like, all
just
right, we're
us.
taking your word for it that you went in there and you fixed those.
Exactly. I feel like it's just SEOs, honestly, that look at, well, SEOs and other like technical people that are looking at source code. But yeah, I think invisible is just kind of like that back end stuff that nobody really sees, but when it's not done correctly or it's configured incorrectly, or let's say there's an image alt tag and it's a picture of Rachel and I said something like, "Oh, this is Kristen Powers," like that could potentially cause issues down the line.
Yeah.
But I think that would be what an invisible SEO task would be to me.
Yep, I think that's good. Anyone else have anything they wanted to add?
I was gonna say when like first understanding the back end area of SEO, I think the invisible is like the first domino in the domino effect. It can
That's
affect
good, yeah.
a number of things if like one small thing is off. But yeah, and then it usually takes a little bit more time to get back the dominoes back set up if the foundation is messed up. So it's usually the foundation and the thing that affects other aspects of the larger scale SEO.
That's true. That's awesome. And just going back to Bailey, I love your idea of where you were saying if we took that pet friendly page and we changed it to luxury, and our page talked all about pet friendly and not about luxury, but just the meta tag said luxury, we're not going to show up as well as if we go in there and we change everything to have more focus on luxury or more hard hitting impact on those luxury terms. So again, things people don't necessarily see outright that will affect how they're ranking for certain terms. All right. Good job, you guys. What do you think that technical elements like canonical tags or hreflang, robots.txt, how do they matter in the grand scheme of SEO work? Those are totally invisible things that people don't see what we do with them, but they can really impact how the site ranks or how people are finding them in search.
I thought you were going to say in the grand schema of
A
things, and I
schema,
thought,
yeah,
yeah,
schema
lost
do.
opportunity. But I kind of think of these as not invisible, but Google facing. Google doesn't browse the internet like us, but if we pretend that it does, it browses in a very different way than we do. And this work is optimizing for Google, not for the user. A lot of the other work we do that's more visible is great. And a lot of it I think is very good for keeping readers on the site, but a lot of the stuff that you don't see is getting users to the site to begin with. And that is, you can have amazing content on your site, but if no one is actually getting there to see it, it is not very useful for anyone.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's kind of like telling Google, like, here's what we want you to index. And it's the directives, it's the items that are keeping the site healthy for being indexed and being findable. Whereas what the client sees is, hey, I Googled this and I didn't show up. Why? It's like, well, probably because one of these things might be messed up or might be not pointed in the right way or not configured correctly. All right, last thing before we talk about real world impact, what optimizations do you guys consider invisible but in fact impactful? Like if you could have your favorite or the biggest one that you would call out, what would it be?
Schema. I love
Schema.
schema. Schema is
Love.
definitely my favorite. It's something that, you never really see it on the client side, but when it does work, it gives you some of just the coolest features on the front with the search engine results page. It really makes you stand out from your competitors and just take up more space on the search landscape. I love it, and it just keeps getting cooler and cooler, especially as AI
I was gonna
starts
say AI
on the
is really
site.
using it too. So not
Yeah.
only was it important for SERP ranking,
Mhm.
but now it's like, oh, do you want to show up in those AI overviews? Great, let's get some schema up on your website.
Mhm.
How about everybody else? What's your favorite invisible impact outside of schema?
I love image alt text. Well,
Awesome.
depending on how long it takes to do on a website, how many photos, but I think I just like looking at the property photos and just
I do
being
too.
creative and just letting the juices flow with keywords and location and branding terms. And I think that's just my favorite because I also get like a little visual element to it. It's like a little treat.
Yeah, for sure. I like I used to love doing redirects for broken links, and that's silly. It's kind of like cleaning things up. I guess a little OCD with organization. It's like once everything's clean, I just feel so much better if everything's going somewhere that's not a dead end. All right, let's hit some real world impact. Do any of you guys have an example of a time when a technical change led to a bigger improvement for a website or for maybe Google crawling the site? Is there something that you can remember that you did that helped? Or on that same thing, like have you seen a site suffer from a missing silent optimization or invisible optimization? And what outcome you saw when it got fixed?
Yeah, I definitely have seen this recently.
Everybody's like me.
No, I mean it's really relevant because the other day it was someone who I just onboarded relatively early on and I was going to do something and I was like, why the heck is like there's nothing in Google Search Console. I can't like there nothing was there and I was like, what is wrong? What is going on? So I like site searched it, like site in Google, and then I was like, oh, this is not indexing. So then I checked the code and they had like a no index across their whole entire website.
That'll do
On
it.
every single page and I was just like, whoa, that is not
Right.
it's not good.
No
So
one's gonna see you. None of the bots, nobody's gonna see you.
right. So I just kind of like hurriedly messaged the AM on the account. And I was like, hey, this is going to be like something that they need to hit on soon. This is impacting every single aspect. It's not just the SEO side. And they relatively like got it fixed, I think, pretty quickly.
Good.
But it's crazy because I think they had been on like paid services maybe
Yeah,
for a while, or it's definitely not a new building.
interesting.
So it was kind of like, when did this happen? When did you guys put a no index across all of your website? Um, this is
Crazy.
greatly going to impact reporting. So,
Negatively, yeah, definitely. Well, that was a good catch. That was a huge
yeah.
catch.
So the huge improvement was Google found their website. It was
They're now
great.
visible, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
life changing.
I know some sites will, if they want to do development work, a lot of times they will no index it as they're messing with things so that and a page doesn't accidentally get indexed with some of the new pieces if they're doing their development live. Most of the times I know it's better to do development not live and then push all the fixes live, but I don't know if that happens across the board for all of our clients, so maybe that's what happened, who knows, but it was a good catch for sure. Anyone else have a story they want to share? Otherwise, I'm going to go to commonly overlooked technical elements, our second favorite topic.
I just want to jump in and say, I just like the reminder of why it's so important to check these things because, there's no like alarm bell that goes off when your site is not indexed. And
Right.
it's hard to catch too because your website will load just fine. So, it can be going on for such a long time, which is why I think, we have a lot of built into our SEO work where we're just checking things. We're just going in and we're auditing and making sure that everything is working as it should. And I think that's something that's so important because, without those frequent checks, like you wouldn't really know anything's wrong unless you went in and did a technical check. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's very
It's a
transparent.
silent thing. It just happens quietly on the back end.
Mhm.
Good call out. Sounds like I'm getting a thunderstorm here. So if you guys start hearing thunder, you know what's happening. All right, some overlooked technical elements. So which technical SEO elements are most often undervalued by clients in your opinion? Or our other teams in our business? What do you think that might be?
I think schema is undervalued just in the sense that people have a harder time understanding it.
Yeah,
So
for
I don't know if
sure.
it's necessarily undervalued or just misunderstood. There are some other elements to this where even if you're looking at like Rent Cafe, you can go in and you can update alt text and it's right there in front of you and the UI is pretty easy to work around. So that's something that if a client was poking around the back end of their site, it's like easy to see and understand that like, okay, this is having an impact. But again, schema is one of those things where it is so behind the scenes and you'd have to understand code that to some extent. That yeah, I just feel like it's not utilized as much as it should be, or they have a harder time grasping the concept of schema.
Yeah, it's very code heavy and not a lot of people like to dive into understanding what that is for sure. I think another one too are like I had mentioned redirects, but canonical tags too are often hard to understand. It's like, why do I need to have a canonical tag on my page saying that this is the page that should be indexed and should be referenced, and any other page content that is similar or duplicate needs to resolve to this page. I think those are very important in Google's eyes because Google's trying to, again, keep everything nice and tidy and they need to know what page to serve up. And if the canonical tags are pointing to a whole different page, then you're not going to rank for the page that we're working on. So that could be very unbeneficial. What invisible fixes do you guys find yourselves recommending most often to clients or doing yourselves?
Maybe not one that I fix myself, but I see a lot. Orphan pages. I don't know if it's just like the CMS, like Rent Cafe, how that's set up, but I find a lot of times just those random one-off pages that are created, or they were linking through another page that the client then deleted and forgot about creating that link back. But I have found quite a few orphan pages just free floating out there, and clients just let them stay orphaned. No one wants to adopt them. It's a shame.
I bet they think like, oh, we're gonna turn it on again someday, or it's there if we need it. We can turn it back on and just add it back into the navigation, but then everything that's linking back to that page is now going to not be as beneficial. It's not gonna be super helpful. It's gonna make that page rank when it's not findable on the website by a human searcher. So crazy. That's a good one. How do you guys find yourselves communicating the value of these invisible optimizations like schema or Bailey, like that no index tag or canonical tags, things like that? Like it's so hard to get it across to the clients. Like how do you find yourselves communicating that?
I mean, when it's a super urgent task, like your website is not indexed, I feel like it's pretty easy to get that across to them when it's an urgent, like, or hey, your HTTPS like is not, you don't have a secure site, like nobody's gonna go to your website. I think those ones are super easy to communicate because you essentially can just show them like, hey, when I look up Tammy's apartments, it's not indexing. Like you are not gonna get leads, you're not gonna get people, like no money. So I feel like those are super easy to get like clients to get behind, but definitely when it comes to like canonicals, keyword research, all of those kind of tasks or the invisible optimizations, it's more about like communicating what it is and why it's important and more of an educational piece. And sometimes that can be a little bit hard, just
Yeah.
because we don't have that one-on-one time with the client to like fully walk them through that every single month. So I definitely think like providing resources for them, whether it's like blogs that we've created or even relevant blogs outside of our industry, and
Yeah.
or
Find that
having
information.
yeah, and or just having like conversations of like, hey, I would love to jump on the next reporting call, and just walk through like why we're doing this, why it might seem like it's not important, but how it plays into SEO best practices and is always going to be beneficial rather than detrimental if you didn't have it.
Yeah, and I know in our notes document, we link to what an optimization is and how it's helpful. And then if clients ever have any questions beyond that, if they're like, I really am not understanding beyond these three sentences what's going on, like it's really good if they just, ask the AM to hit up the SEO for some more information. And like you said, Bailey, you can join a call, you can provide some more backup information or some really good, blogs or support pieces that might help them understand why we're doing what we're doing because we're here to get the best outcome for the clients for sure.
I think it also helps, and I hate to say this, but it helps when the property isn't doing well, like with lease ups or
Yeah.
like just tenants in general. Because then I think the marketing leads, the property owners are all scrambling to look for an answer and a quick fix, and then they're more into like, okay, how's our website like working behind the scenes? And then they'll come to us and say, what can we do to fix like the occupancy rate? And when they're panicking like that, then I feel like we have all eyes on us and we can really speak our case way easier. I hate that that's sometimes the case, but I find that happens a lot.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think it's
Yeah.
important too to point out that a lot of times these items that we do, I mean, everything in SEO that we do is the long game. So we do things that compound upon each other over time so that it grows and grows. But specifically, these invisible optimizations, it's going to take some time for that to ramp up. So just fixing these things, well, in Bailey's case, though, getting a no index off of a site will immediately hopefully index the website and have it start showing up in Google again. So some of them are faster. But for the most part, some of these other items are more of a slower burn. So patience is always asked for. Just, be patient with time. All this stuff will compound upon each other and make for better rankings and better, just better showing. But technical items, fixing things for the website, the unseen part is when a client goes to a site and has a better experience. So that's really what we mostly want because we don't want people leaving the website because they're so upset that page isn't loading. Or when I searched for this page, it said it was about, amenities, and now I'm sitting here on the terms and conditions page. So, how did that happen? Just things like that. We want to fix the user experience as well. All right, let's talk about the future. So let's see. As AI and search engines evolve, do you guys think that technical SEO will become more or less important? That's a
I
good
think
topic.
that it will become more important. I feel like I was just saying the other day, I was in a call with someone and I got like the AI overview of like my call and everything was like so detailed and it got sent to me like within 30 seconds of the call ending. So I feel like AI is like in machine learning is evolving so much to the point where they're just going to be like throwing things out if it's not relevant.
Yeah.
And it's a quicker response over time that, if something small like non-indexing or not something small, it's not small at all, but anything that's deemed as like, just not relevant for Google and, AI overview, like they're just going to be thrown out. So I think the process is going to be way more important for us to like hone in on the tedious details of the back end of sites because we don't want anything to be, brushed past and this goes on for months and we don't know because AI is just like, oh, not relevant.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's
I
like, don't
definitely
forget
think it'll
us.
be more, yeah, it'll be more important to pay attention to those smaller things, those invisible optimizations.
Awesome.
Yeah, and to add to that, like there are so many websites out there now, and as AI evolves and as people can kind of use AI to make, quick but low quality websites with quick and low quality content, it's hard. Google has to keep up with that. And anytime that your website can be better than not only just the low quality websites, but your competition, like Google will always reward that in some way. And I think just SEO has always changed so drastically since it started because we are both working with Google and fighting Google a little bit. It's kind of the nature of SEO. That's kind of why I like it because you got to stay one step ahead. So that's really the biggest element, I think, is just having like someone who understands Google who knows how to fight back.
I agree. Yeah, I was wondering, you just said with Google doesn't have time with sites that aren't great. I wanted to figure out how many websites go live each day, like competition wise, there's always something new. What do you guys think the number is? Don't Google it, but give me a number. What do you think the number is for how many websites, new websites go live each day?
Just
1.5 million.
Yeah, it's gotta be over that.
at least 3.
At least three. Somewhere between the 3 and a million. You're right.
Barely trying to price is right over here.
I love it. I vote $1. It says 252,000 new websites go live each day, and that's a lot. That's ridiculous.
And I'm sure that number is increasing.
I'm sure. Yeah. How do you guys think we should prioritize our invisible optimizations? Seeing that clients sometimes are on the fence about, since I'm not seeing a tangible, I don't really understand it. So just ignore those and then do these other things first. Do you think that's wise? Is it not wise? Where should we fit these invisible optimizations into the scheme of things?
I think it matters on like what the issue is, how serious it is. Like Bailey said, if it's the site's not being indexed at all, that's a huge issue that needs to come first every single time.
Yeah.
So things like that should 100% be prioritized. But beyond that, it's really going to come down to auditing and even sometimes just like looking at a site, not even looking at like technical audits, you can like decide if something needs to be addressed first and foremost. So I feel like it's just a lot of auditing on our side and then figuring out like how much time we have and what's important to address from there.
I love that.
I think it's also important to like have that communication with your client.
Yeah.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I can definitely
Oh,
hear you.
my computer freaked out for a second.
My room keeps getting darker. This is crazy. It feels like it's nighttime in here. There's just a storm passing through. Ignore me.
I think communicating with your client though, I think sometimes if they come to you and they're like, let's just say, for example, I mean, obviously image alt types are super important for people with disabilities. But if they were to come to you and be like, hey, we have some generic ones on site, we really want you to focus in on whatever content, schema, metadata, etc. I think if you have a good plan with your client and kind of communicate like, hey, totally understand that. However, we do like to have these little like check-ins, audits of like, are we technically sound? Are we good? I think communication is just like really key.
Huge. Yeah.
To
Yeah, keeping the
educate.
client in the loop is always an important thing.
Mhm.
And understanding kind of their priorities and trying to work with them there.
I think in some ways, one of our roles is to be a translator between algorithms and humans. And because it is like not the most intuitive thing to like learn what an algorithm cares about and what it prioritizes.
Yeah.
And it also changes. And so it makes sense that there would be questions that come up about like, how is this impacting my overall goals, which are, traffic, leases, occupancy. And so I think, that's an important part of what we do. And it evolves with time, like what we prioritize, and it really depends on like the specific website, like Kristen was saying.
Yeah, I love that. Those are all my questions. Do you guys have any questions for all of us? Why is it raining? Why is my room so dark?
No, I think to go off of Cherry's comment though of like why it's important, because I think it's like the foundation. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, the what we're doing it for is to get leads, like to get someone in an apartment building. However, you have to start all the way back to the foundation of like when I think there's like some picture of like where someone put something in a wall, like a brick wall at the bottom, and it shows you how the bricks like get wonky the further up you go. I feel like that's the main part of like SEO is like we're building this foundation to make sure that things don't go awry as time goes on. Making sure that things are like clean and precise and aren't going to cause issues down the line.
Cool. I love
So
that.
poetic.
Yeah, like another thing with SEO too is sometimes it's death by a thousand cuts, you know? So updating alt tags, you're not going to see like an immediate jump in your rankings, but it is going to be added in with all the other things that you were doing that are going to get your rankings up as the website builds trust and then also hopefully keep them there for a little bit longer. And they're not so volatile because we're not doing like little quick things to like you can get on the first page of Google overnight, like a lot of people like to claim. But when you do the work, especially the small invisible looking stuff, you are, like Bailey said, building that foundation. It just takes a lot of little things to do it sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
And going off of that as well, like Rachel just said, where some things don't always have like the biggest impact immediately, like alt text, it's also if those are things that you're doing on your site, it is helping to set your site apart from others who aren't doing it. And I feel like in this industry in particular, there's so many properties that are very similar, especially like lease ups where you have a lot of the same amenities and similar looking apartments. So if you're just going off of visuals and like changes that you can see, you're not always going to be able to like stand out above the rest. So making sure that you are doing everything you can like behind the scene and all these like invisible SEO elements, I feel like can really help you stand out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's also in a world where we also have templated websites, it's like you might look the same as other people in your landscape, but if you're doing the right things and building up, you'll show up higher because Google will have more trust, or any search engine. It doesn't have to be Google, so it could be Bing or anybody. But we're building that trust and that longevity over time for showing up well. Cool. Jerry has a helper. Awesome, guys. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I thank you for your time. This was a good topic to talk about.
Thank you for holding this.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.